I mean, imagine working this totally grueling 40-hour week.
Right.
You spend all day doing the heavy lifting for the local economy.
Yeah.
Maybe you're delivering pizzas or doing laundry at a hotel or, stocking grocery shelves. And then when your shift finally ends, your commute is just driving your car to some dark industrial park.
Right. Just to park.
Exactly. You turn off the engine and you try to sleep upright in the driver's seat, just hoping a security guard doesn't tap on your window at like 2 in the morning.
Which is terrifying.
It is. And the thing is, you listening right now, it's highly likely you drove past someone doing exactly this today and you probably didn't even notice.
Most people don't.
Yeah. It's this massive escalating crisis happening right on the margins of your daily commute. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking directly at the incredibly complex reality of vehicular and unsheltered homelessness, specifically focusing on what's happening right now in Arizona. We've pulled together local news reports, city ordinances, point-in-time data, advocacy research, and even this really interesting tactical survival guide written by and for vehicle dwellers.
And our mission today is really to cut through the standard stereotypes. We want to understand this legal landscape that is shifting dramatically right beneath our feet.
Dramatically.
Yeah, and explore the actual mechanisms of how people survive in these invisible spaces. Because honestly, what you think you know about who is living in their car and why they're there.
Oh, it's going to be challenged.
Exactly. It's likely about to be completely challenged.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even begin to talk about fixing a problem, we have to know exactly how big it is, right?
Naturally, yeah.
And right now, the primary tools we use to measure homelessness are just severely flawed.
They really are. I mean, the main tool used nationwide, and this includes Arizona, is called the point-in-time count, or the PIT count. But to understand its limitations, you have to understand how it actually works. Like, in places like Tucson, local planning bodies coordinate hundreds of volunteers. I think it was nearly 400 this past year.
Wow. 400.
Yeah, and they physically walk the streets, check parks, and literally count the individuals they see over a single night in January.
Just one night.
Just one night. And the data from Maricopa County showed an overall flat count from the previous year. The unsheltered count dropped by 12%, while the sheltered count went up by 14%.
Right. So if you just look at those top-line numbers, it's incredibly easy to think, okay, the problem is stabilizing.
And that is exactly the danger of relying solely on this methodology.
Because it's literally just a snapshot. I mean, is the PIT count essentially like trying to calculate a city's rush hour traffic problem by, only counting the cars parked on the street at 3 in the morning?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you're completely missing the reality because the environment itself naturally hides the issue at that specific time. It's like trying to count fireflies at noon. You're only capturing a tiny fraction of what's actually there.
That is a much more accurate way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah.
The fireflies analogy is perfect.
Yeah.
Because you miss the vast majority of the population since they simply aren't visible to some volunteer walking down the sidewalk with a clipboard.
Right.
When you look at broader research measuring the true number of people experiencing homelessness over the course of a full year, the actual number is somewhere between 2.5 to 10 times higher than what that single-night PIT count captures.
Wait, 10 times higher?
Up to 10 times, yeah.
That is a staggering gap in the data. How do you even miss that many people?
By entirely missing the people who were intentionally staying out of sight to survive.
Oh, I see.
Like the data entirely misses families who are doubling or tripling up. You frequently have situations where, 8 to 10 people, including young kids, are crammed into a single 2-bedroom apartment. And crucially for our deep dive today, this physical counting method just completely misses the tens of thousands of people living inside their vehicles.
Because they're parked overnight at like a 24-hour retail lot or tucked away behind suburban shopping centers.
Exactly.
So if the official data completely misses them, who actually are these people living in their vehicles? Because when you dig into the demographics, it completely shatters that standard stereotype of the chronically homeless individual pushing a shopping cart.
It really does. Let's look at the data coming out of the LifeBridge Safe Lots initiative. They operate in the Phoenix Valley.
Okay.
And they work directly with individuals living in their cars. And their findings are pretty remarkable. 75% of the individuals they interact with are actively employed.
75%? I mean, that means the vast majority are clocking in somewhere every single day.
Yes, they're working. Furthermore, 80% of them are classified as first-time homeless.
Wow.
meaning they were completely stable and then lost their housing within the last 45 to 60 days.
Okay, wait, let me just stop and push back on that for a second.
Sure.
If 75% of these folks are actively employed and have, consistent income coming in, why can't they just get an apartment? Is this no longer a joblessness issue, but purely a math problem? Like, the gap between a fixed income or a lower wage job and skyrocketing rent has just become impossible to bridge.
Well, it's tempting to think it's just a math problem, but it's actually a collision of math, credit history, and eviction records.
Oh, the eviction records.
Yeah, it is incredibly difficult to bridge that gap, but the math is really only the first hurdle. Once someone falls behind on rent because the math stops working, they usually get an eviction on their record.
Right.
And in today's highly competitive housing market, an eviction essentially blacklists you.
Even if you get a new job.
Even if you get a new job or, pick up extra shifts to make the math work again, most landlords and corporate property managers will automatically reject an application if there's a recent eviction.
So they are trapped in the system.
Completely trapped. Take Matilda, a 65-year-old woman in Mesa.
Okay.
She's on oxygen and uses a walker due to a partial amputation. She had an apartment, but her rent was raised to a level her fixed income just couldn't cover. So she was evicted.
Oh, man.
And because of that eviction, she couldn't secure a new place, so she ended up living in her car.
And the tragic irony for Matilda is that she was making it work, right? Surviving in that car until a collision totaled it,
Exactly.
destroying her literal home and leaving her on the pavement until an outreach program finally found her.
Yeah. Or look at Shauna, who fled a severe domestic abuse situation. She ended up living in her car with a 10-day-old newborn.
Oh, my
A
God.
10-day-old newborn and a 4-year-old child.
In a car.
In a car. The demographic data from Mesa's Off the Streets program is incredibly revealing regarding just how vulnerable this hidden population is. Over half, 53% of the people they serve have physical disabilities.
Right.
11% are elderly, over the age of 62. 19% are youth, kids under 18. And 21% are survivors of domestic violence.
I mean, these aren't people looking to cause trouble. These are incredibly vulnerable populations just trying to survive. There was this quote from a worker in Sedona who's living in their vehicle that really captures this dynamic.
Yeah, that was a powerful quote.
They pointed out that while they may not be housed, they're the ones doing the laundry, working at the gas stations, cooking at the restaurants, delivering the pizza. Like, they're the invisible workforce holding up the local tourist economy.
And this raises an important question. Why do they stay invisible?
Right.
The LifeBridge research emphasizes that these women, workers, and families prefer to stay hidden out of fear and shame. They don't want their coworkers to know.
Because of the stigma.
Exactly. They don't want child protective services involved if they have kids. But that very isolation is what makes them so vulnerable. When you are hiding to survive, you're completely cut off from the support systems that could actually help you navigate out of the situation.
So we have this working, deeply vulnerable population living out of sight in their cars. But the legal ground underneath their tires is shifting dramatically, right?
Very dramatically.
The laws are changing, and the pendulum is swinging heavily towards strict enforcement and criminalization.
Yeah, this is a monumental shift in the legal landscape. For years, the standard in the western United States was defined by a Ninth Circuit court ruling known as Martin v. Boise.
Right.
That ruling essentially established that cities could not enforce anti-camping ordinances if the city didn't have enough shelter beds available to offer the individuals.
Basically, the logic was that you can't punish someone for the biological necessity of sleeping if you can't provide them a legal place to do it.
Right, but that framework was just dismantled.
Wow.
The U.S. Supreme Court heard a case called City of Grants Pass v. Johnson. The court upheld the Grants Pass ordinances, effectively overruling the Martin v. Boise standard.
Okay, and what was their reasoning?
The court's logic was that these local laws don't criminalize the status of being homeless, but rather the action of occupying and setting up a campsite on public property.
Got it.
So under this new ruling, cities now have the green light to enforce anti-camping laws, regardless of their actual shelter capacity.
And we are seeing the immediate ripple effects of that ruling locally in Arizona. Like, Tucson recently passed an ordinance criminalizing sleeping in washes, those dry riverbeds that run through the city.
Yeah.
And doing so now comes with fines and potential jail time.
And in Mesa, They pass an ordinance that explicitly bans camping paraphernalia on public property.
What counts as paraphernalia?
Well, we aren't just talking about pitching a massive tent. The legal definition in the ordinance includes tarps, cots, sleeping bags, hammocks, and cooking equipment.
So basically anything you'd need to survive outside.
Pretty much. It gives local police broad authority to clear areas immediately.
But the enforcement side gets infinitely more complicated with the recent passage of Proposition 312 in Arizona. Now, I want to be incredibly clear with you, the listener, right now.
This is important.
Yeah, this was a highly politically charged ballot measure. We are not taking a side on this. You just need to understand how the mechanics of this law impact the entire landscape for local cities.
Exactly. Proposition 312 is a statewide measure that passed with almost 59% of the vote. And it fundamentally changes the financial incentives for local governments.
How so?
It allows property owners to apply for property tax refunds if they can prove their local government is failing to enforce public nuisance laws, which includes these anti-camping laws.
So wait, how does that actually work in practice? If a business owner is dealing with property damage or blocked sidewalks, they just get a check from the city.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it acts as a financial penalty against the municipality. If a business owner documents that the city is refusing to clear encampments near their property, they can claim a refund on their property taxes to offset the expenses they incurred dealing with the nuisance.
And that money comes directly out of the city's budget.
Exactly.
Man, you look at the different perspectives on this, and it's just a massive point of community tension. Because you have groups like the Goldwater Institute and state legislators pointing to areas like the Zone in Phoenix, arguing that citizens need a tangible mechanism to force cities to maintain public order.
Right.
From their perspective, unchecked encampments lead to severe property damage and lawlessness, and neighborhoods shouldn't have to fit the bill for municipal inaction.
That's the argument, yeah.
But then you look at housing advocates, like the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, and they counter that this is just a punitive drain on resources. They argue it punishes cities without solving the root cause, which is the severe lack of affordable housing, and simply criminalizes vulnerable people while draining the very tax dollars needed to build shelters.
Which is a valid concern on their end.
Right, which leads to this glaring contradiction. I mean, if a city loses a massive amount of tax revenue because of Prop 312 refunds, doesn't that mean they have even less money to build the shelters and hire the outreach workers that the voters are ultimately demanding?
Oh, absolutely. It puts local mayors and city councils in a complete vice grip.
I bet.
They're facing immense, justifiable pressure from residents and business owners who want public spaces cleared.
Yeah.
They now have a state mandate backed by direct financial penalties if they don't strictly enforce the laws. But they're simultaneously dealing with the reality of a massive, undercounted workforce living in their vehicles who literally have nowhere else to go.
Which brings us to the most practical question of this entire deep dive. With cities actively passing ordinances to move people out, and Prop 312 demanding strict enforcement, where do these vehicle dwellers actually go when the sun goes down?
They enter what we can only describe as the gray market of survival parking.
Survival parking.
Yeah. One of the documents we reviewed is this wiki-style survival guide called Grokipedia.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
It is specifically written by and for vehicle dwellers in the Phoenix area, and it details the exhausting reality of trying to find a legal patch of asphalt for the night.
Exhausting is the right word. It reads less like a travel guide and more like a tactical evasion manual.
Truly.
They talk heavily about retail lots, specifically Walmart, but it notes that while corporate policy might technically allow overnight parking, the reality on the ground is entirely up to the discretion of the individual store manager.
Right.
And with local ordinances tightening up, those spots are disappearing fast. You can easily be woken up by a flashlight at 2 in the morning in order to leave under threat of trespassing.
Yeah. Then there are the massive truck stops along Interstate 10, places like Flying J or Travel Centers of America.
Right, the big ones.
They offer crucial amenities like paid showers and 24-hour restrooms. But they're built specifically for commercial truckers. The spaces are highly competitive, the environment is incredibly loud with diesel engines idling all night, and management expects high turnover.
So it's not a long-term solution.
No, it is a place to close your eyes for a few hours, not a place to rest.
So vehicle dwellers start looking for legal loopholes outside of municipal jurisdiction. And one of the biggest ones is tribal land.
Because tribal lands operate as sovereign nations, they are entirely exempt from these municipal anti-camping ordinances.
Oh, wow.
The guide specifically points people toward the Gila River gaming enterprises, the casinos. They have policies that allow RVs and vehicle dwellers to park in designated, oversized lots for up to 48 hours.
Okay, 48 hours.
Yeah, and it's safe, it's well lit, and there are security patrols, but it is strictly short-term.
Right. And when that 48-hour clock runs out, they have to move on, which pushes a massive number of people out of the city entirely onto public lands managed by the Bureau of Land Management, or the BLM.
And BLM lands offer what is called dispersed primitive camping. It is free to use, but the reality of primitive in the Arizona desert is brutal.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
We are talking about patches of dirt or gravel with absolutely no water, no power hookups, and no trash services. You can legally stay for 14 days within a 28-day period.
Okay.
But the catch is, to reset that 14-day clock, you have to move your vehicle a minimum of 25 miles away from your original spot.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I mean, is this entire existence essentially just a high-stakes game of musical chairs?
Basically.
Except the chairs are constantly moving 25 miles away across a harsh desert. And depending on the season, the new chair you find might be in an area under extreme fire bans where you can't even cook food, or it might be located inside an active flash flood zone during the summer monsoons.
It is a relentless logistical nightmare. It requires constant planning, constant fuel costs, and total self-sufficiency in an environment where summer temperatures regularly exceed 110 degrees.
Unbelievable.
It is physically and mentally exhausting, especially if you are one of the 75% who is also trying to commute back into the city every day to hold down a job.
So while thousands of people are playing this exhausting game of survival parking, some cities are recognizing that they just cannot arrest their way out of this crisis. They have to build sanctioned off-ramps from homelessness, right? They have to balance enforcement with actual solutions.
Yeah, and we are seeing communities attempt to balance the carrot and the stick with wildly different results. In Sedona, the mayor proposed a safe parking lot program.
How did that go?
Well, it was a simple concept. A designated legal piece of land with sanitation facilities where people could sleep in their cars overnight without fear of harassment.
Sounds reasonable.
But it faced intense, organized pushback from local residents. The hotel owner who helped facilitate the initial plan noted that the opposition quickly became highly political, with residents explicitly complaining they didn't want anything with a liberal smell in their town.
Oh, wow.
So the program essentially stalled. The mayor conceded it wasn't a perfect idea, but challenged the community to offer any viable alternative, which, they couldn't.
And then you contrast that stalemate with what the city of Mesa is doing with their Off the Streets program, or OTS. I mean, this is a drastically different approach.
It is highly structured and heavily regulated. Mesa utilized federal funding to actually purchase a sleep-in hotel.
A whole hotel.
A whole hotel, and they transformed it into a closed campus shelter. This is not a place where you can just walk up to the lobby and ask for a room.
Yeah.
It is strictly referral-based. You have to be brought in by the police, arc rangers, or dedicated outreach workers.
And the rules inside are incredibly strict. I mean, they enforce a 10 p.m. curfew, they conduct daily room checks to ensure compliance, and they have a dedicated police officer on site 24 hours a day. It is designed to be completely secure and heavily monitored.
Yeah. And what's fascinating here is how Mesa deliberately engineered this entire program around a good neighbor policy.
What does that mean?
They understood that any shelter would face immediate community pushback. So they designed the facility specifically to appease the surrounding business owners. They implemented visual buffering so the facility blends in, strict curfews to prevent loitering, and that constant police presence ensures there is no negative spillover.
And does it work?
The data proves it works. Crime trends around the hotel completely mirror the rest of the city.
But the OTS program isn't just an exercise in public relations, right? There is a deeply strategic legal mechanism behind it, tying directly back to what we discussed earlier about enforcement.
Oh, absolutely. This is the linchpin of Mesa's strategy. Even with the grants pass ruling giving cities more leeway, Mesa uses this hotel as their guaranteed alternative bed.
Okay.
If local police encounter someone illegally camping in a city park or sleeping in a wash, they can offer them a room at the OTS hotel right then and there.
And if they say no?
If the person refuses that available bed, the police are then legally empowered, without any ambiguity or fear of lawsuits, to strictly enforce the urban camping bans and remove them. The existence of the shelter literally enables the strict enforcement.
But it's also highly effective at actually helping the people who accept the bed. It isn't just a holding cell. The city data shows that in 2022, 84% of the OTS participants successfully graduated to the next step in their housing stability plan.
And that's largely because of the wraparound services.
Right.
When we say wraparound services, we aren't just talking about giving someone a pamphlet. We are talking about dedicated case managers who sit down with these individuals to help them replace lost birth certificates, clear up old bench warrants for minor infractions, and actively navigate the bureaucratic maze of subsidized housing applications.
Which is so overwhelming on its own.
It really is. When you combine that immediate, safe shelter with intense administrative support, and critically, when you remove the exhausting daily hunt for a legal parking spot, people actually have the mental bandwidth to stabilize.
Yeah.
The LifeBridge data notes that nationally, these types of structured safe parking and temporary models see 50% of people transition to permanent housing within 60 to 90 days.
That's incredible. So what does this all mean? We are watching communities walk an incredibly tightrope over a widening canyon.
Very well said.
On one side, you have an invisible, vulnerable, and largely employed workforce doing the jobs that keep the city's economy functioning. On the other side, you have a clear voter mandate backed by financial penalties, demanding public order, clean spaces, and strict enforcement of the law.
And caught right in the middle of that tension are the human faces behind the data. People like Matilda, recovering from a partial amputation in the front seat of a car, or Shauna, trying to keep a 10-day-old newborn safe in a Walmart parking lot.
Yeah.
The shifting legal landscape has made it infinitely harder for them to hide, but the economic reality hasn't made it any easier for them to find a home.
It brings us right back to that thought from the very beginning. You are driving past these hidden struggles every single day. The reality is out there, even if the glaring sun of our daily routines makes it impossible to see. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. We talked about people surviving in their cars on BLM land. As climate change continues to push summer temperatures higher and higher, breaking heat records year after year in places like Arizona. How long until vehicular homelessness transforms from a complex housing issue into a mass, acute medical crisis? A crisis of heat stroke and exposure that could completely break the local healthcare infrastructure before the housing system can even begin to react.
It is a terrifying but very real possibility that city planners and hospitals are going to have to consider very soon.
Perfectly homeless is more than a phrase, it's a perspective. If you want to support our mission and help us keep diving deep into these vital topics, head over to the Perfectly Homeless Etsy store. Pick up a warm hoodie with our logo. It directly helps support our content creation. Perfectly Homeless is a brand built from real life and real lessons. Wear the message of freedom support the Perfectly Homeless podcast on YouTube and Patreon.